everybody. I am so glad to be back in the studio doing another podcast. My name is Joanne Cox, and this is Justified Jewel Podcast. That's right, you're here to get all sorts of information. At Justified Jewel Podcast, we talk about spirituality, we talk about health, we talk about the general public, we talk about physical, mental, social awareness. We're just talking about all these different things. But today, we're going to be talking about different types of transition. Now, that's a very big word. It's very broad. But what are transitions? Transitions are when you're moving from one state to another, meaning it can be anything from a place or a feeling that you have. But before we get into that, I want to give you a little bit more about me. Again, my name is Joanne Cox, and this is Justified Jewel Podcast. I can be found at www.justifiedjewel.com. I am a certified coach and a keynote speaker. But today, you're going to hear from this, I call her the victory woman. This is the victory woman, and her name is Nanette Buchanan. Nanette is going to give you a little bit of information about herself and where she can be reached at the end of this podcast. But right now, we're going to get started with Nanette. Thank you for being here, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Nanette Buchanan, and I have the awesome opportunity to work with Joanne Cox. We have a podcast together, and we do a whole lot of projects together. And I enjoy working with the woman with the tenacity that she has, simply because she gives me that little kick that I need. I am from New Jersey originally, and in 2018, 2019, I retired from my full-time job where I was a sergeant in the Department of Corrections, as well as a training instructor, as well as I can't even name all of the topics that I had to train the officers in, but I also was a supervisor in a male institution. So when we talk about transitioning, there's been so many transitions. And as we go along, what I want the people in the audience to understand is each transition can be a challenge and then a victory. All you have to do is set your mind to it, be positive, optimistic about it, and you will find that there's a way to get through it. So I'm hoping that this talk with Joanne is going to alleviate some of the problems that you may find. Because like I said, it's a challenge, but there's always a way around that challenge.
And with any podcast, I would like to suggest that right now you go and get your pen and paper, because there's going to be some information here that you're going to want to jot down and to use it in your everyday life, work, and all different kind of places. Now, Nanette has already told you about her career, and she's talked about some things. So we're going to go straight in to this transition between working as a correctional officer and becoming an entrepreneur. What was that transition like, Nanette?
That transition was dropped on me. It was not something. It was not something that was planned. I did plan to retire. And just a snippet about that. Don't wait till the last month. Don't wait till the last year. Don't wait till the last moment, because each job has its own criteria. They have their own health plans. They have their own perspective plans for the person that is the retiree. And some of those plans change from when you started 10 years ago, when you started 15 years ago. So I was ready to go with 10 years left. I was ready. So each year and a half, I would make sure I checked those things and make sure. However, what changed and was a transition for me, in 2007, I didn't retire until 2018, as I stated. In 2007, my husband had a stroke. He could not go back to work. He was going to be on Social Security and disability, but that meant I had to bring in a little bit of extra money. I did not have the extra time. In transitioning, we look for time. When is it the right time to transition? When is it the right money to transition? How much can I transition with? Well, I didn't have anything extra, of course, because we were living on 2 salaries.
Right.
So waiting for Social Security to kick in and waiting for other things, my children brought up the fact that I write. They
Mm.
said, you write poems. You go and read your poems. But Joanne, I wasn't doing it for money. I wasn't looking at that as money. I was looking at that as inspiration for others. I was looking at just filling in my little 2 cents to help people. I wasn't
Mhm.
trying to make any money, but as life would have it, sometimes there's changes in your life that you don't even bank on. And
Yes.
what life had banked on was I had been writing since college. I
Mm.
had poetry, volumes of it. I had children's books. I had storylines. I had all kind of synopsises. So I started writing and looking into publishing. And that's what sustained us.
Mm.
Selling the books,
Mhm.
getting out, learning about the events, and learning about those things. So that was my first transition before I even retired. Well, that
Wow.
same transition helped us to decide. We already knew we wanted to come to North Carolina.
Mhm.
But now what am I going to do when I get there? Well, I'm going to be in doing the same thing that I was doing without the
Mhm.
correctional end to it. So that was my transition. Just something that a lot of times we think of a transition as a planned transition. It's not
Mhm.
always planned. That was my
Yes.
not planned transition. Another not planned transition is when you go to the doctor and they say, "Oh, you're pregnant."
and
You,
and that's and that's what I brought up at the very beginning is that the word
mm-hmm.
transition is a
It's so
blanket
many different
word.
things.
It is broad,
Yes,
and we go through
yes.
them, and sometimes we don't even realize that we're making a transition. But
Mm-hmm.
in anything, and I've worked with Nanette for quite some time now, when you already have that mindset of being prepared and understanding challenges, you realize that all of those steps can fit into all of those different type of transitions. Now, she mentioned that she moved from New Jersey to North Carolina. Now, I want to dive into that because New Jersey is considered the North. North is North. And we hear so much about how the North is versus the South. Well, we're here in North Carolina, which is still considered a Southern state. Tell me some of the little challenges that you had just knowing that, what am I doing here in North Carolina?
One of the main things that myself and my son moved down a year after me. My daughter was already here. She had been here for well over 20 years. So my son is an entrepreneur as well. And when we both sat down to have our family meeting, figuring she's going to give us all the scoop about what we can do and what we can't do, and what we should do and what we shouldn't do about business, because she also was an entrepreneur. She had her own therapist business. So we're talking to her about it, and she said, one thing I'm going to tell you, the South is who you know orientated, where the North is more what you know orientated. And I have found that to be true. However, I want to tell the audience that when you're making a transition, the two must combine. It must be getting to know people, getting to know what they do and who they do it with. It also must be, what do you know? What are you bringing to the table that they may not have? How can you fill the void? And that makes bonds. That makes things come together.
Yes.
I've met certain people, and every time they have an event or every time they call to have something, I try to make it my business to be there. What does that tell them? I'm reliable. I'm dependable, because
Yes.
they don't know me. They've only known me 3 years, some maybe 2 years. I think Joanne is the only one that knew me right from the start. That was the very first thing I did, was connect with Joanne. She was one of my very first people that I connected with. But a lot of them, I've connected with them since being here. So
Right.
they don't know about reliability. They don't know, am I going to be honest? Am I going to tell the truth? Am I going to be on time, being punctual? Am I going to return calls and emails? So you have to learn how to be, set your criteria first.
Yes.
Don't go out and say you want someone else to set you up. Not in
Mm-hmm.
the South. It's not going to happen.
Right.
You will have to find people. And if you're trying to find people, they want to know what you know. They want to know what are you bringing with you? You're
Mm-hmm.
saying that you retired. Well, what did you retire to? Did you
Mm-hmm.
come down here looking for another job? Or did you come down with your skills?
Right.
And what skills do you have? Do you know your skills? Do you know that after doing your work that you're going into a knitting business, that you can knit sweaters, and you're going into what your passion is. But
Mm-hmm.
do you know what the business behind that passion entails?
Right.
Do some work on your own to find out
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how your business fits in to the area you are going to.
That is so different when I say from New Jersey to North Carolina, because it's a different perspective.
Exactly.
And that you're bringing to the table today is what you experience and how you feel. And I can see that that is so into the mind of an entrepreneur. My favorite quote is, knowledge is what you know. Wisdom is what you do with what you know. So
Mm-hmm.
what you are bringing forth is that actual thing of knowing people, getting to know people, and representing who you are, so that they know that you're reliable. And that way you just connect right in there
You
to
fit
get
right
started.
in.
You
You
fit
fit
right,
right in.
you
And
fit right in.
you could possibly be the puzzle piece that they're looking for. But
Exactly.
you have to know what your piece is. You have
Mm-hmm.
to know how you fit in. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't fit in, don't feel like you can't walk away.
Yes.
Don't sit in something so long that you find out that I've been wasting time.
Mm-hmm.
Time you can't gain back.
Yes.
So you don't want to do that. Another thing about the North and the South, some of well, everywhere you go, it's not just the South. If you went west, or you went, further north, it would be the
Mm-hmm.
same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Rules, regulations, law is
Mm-hmm.
different. Is
Yes.
different.
Mm-hmm.
Understand how you will process your business.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do for my IRS statements? What do I do for my unemployment now that, if I'm retiring early?
Yes.
My IRS statements, those things were very different.
Mm-hmm.
Those things were different than the New Jersey law. And I was asking some people that had retired from New York, it was different from the New York law. So you
Mm.
have to make sure you understand when you leave, there's paperwork that you got to deal with.
Yes.
You have to get registered, your insurance, your license,
Mm.
all of those things that we think about overhead before you even think about your business. Because
Yes.
your business could be located anywhere. Your corporate office could be anywhere. You
That's
don't have to
right.
change your address, your EIN number. You don't have to do all of that. But when you go to these events and you go to
Mm-hmm.
different things, you have to follow the regulations of the event
Mm-hmm.
coordinator. And you also have to know, well, how will this affect me in filing my IRS? Understand that the laws where you go
Mm-hmm.
may be very different than the law that you've been used to.
I
So you
hope
have to
the
check that.
I hope the audience is really taking notes, because these are things when people move, this is the last thing on their mind. They're not
Exactly.
thinking about the legal aspects of anything.
Yeah, you
And
can't
then
just jump out. You can't just
you
jump
can't.
out and start your business, and you haven't
Yes.
checked to see, will your business be able to carry over? Because you're going to get different things when vendors have, event planners have different events. Sometimes there's paperwork you have to fill out that goes to the
Right.
government for them to fill it out.
Mm-hmm.
I had one just this past month and a half. I did something with the Art Council,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a special for children. If the
Mm.
children got a book, the Art Council paid for their book. Their parents didn't have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Not a problem. Well, when they sent the check to me for my children's books, they
Mm-hmm.
sent it in the name of my company. No problem. I go to deposit it in my account, and they said, "Where's your name?" It just had the company name, I Pen Visions.
Yes,
They wanted to know, well, where is your name? I said, well, wait a minute. I have my paper.
I am.
I
Yes.
have my paperwork that says that I'm iPen Visions. So
Right.
I showed them my paperwork. She said, well,
Mm-hmm.
all of that is fine, but that's not who they wrote the check out to.
Mm.
So you have to know how
Mm-hmm.
things are exchanged on one end and the other. Small thing that has to be done. It's
Mm-hmm.
not something that's major. I just take the check back to them and they cut me another check with my name and the business name. They wanted both.
But it was something that you did not know
I
that
did
you
not
got.
know. I
And
did
there are
not
some
know.
things that are time sensitive.
Exactly.
And you want to be able to know that.
You want to know. You
Yeah,
want to know ahead of time.
and absolutely. So the viewers need to know that type of thing. Now, on my business, it's Justified Jewel, but on everything is Justified Jewel doing business as Joanne Cox.
Exactly.
So
and that was the
both of those
difference.
things are there. Yes.
And that was the difference because I do all my books through Amazon and you know, publishing and everything. And that's what they do, doing
Exactly.
business as.
Mhm.
But this check that the Art Council did, they didn't do doing business as.
Mhm.
They just wrote it out to the business. So these are things that you have to look at, and small challenge, nothing negative.
No.
Like I said, when you go into the challenge, don't go into it with the mindset or the frame of mind that this is going to be a problem.
Yeah, you're
No,
just
it's not.
knowledgeable. Yeah, you just want to
No.
be knowledgeable.
No,
Yeah.
if you have, and even if you don't have the knowledge, be willing to ask questions.
To get the knowledge,
To
the
get the knowledge.
resources. Yeah,
And
they're
put it,
resources.
I used to tell my trainees all the time, put it in your toolbox.
That's
Because
right.
you never
That's
know
what it
when you're
is.
going to need that tool. Put
Pull
it
it
in your
out.
toolbox. Pull it
Pull
out.
it out.
Unscrew whatever the problem is. Hammer in whatever you need to hammer in. You know, you get all of these things done. It's in your toolbox. Now, if your
Yes.
toolbox doesn't have that tool, you want to know, well, what is that? What is that I have to do? Now you have a new tool to put in your box.
Mhm. Well, all the time that I've actually known Nanette, she's very active. And sometimes when people say active, they think they're just running all over the place. No, active means that you're doing productive things, not busyness, but to be productive. And she's putting things out there. She's willing to help others as well in their business, especially when it comes under that same umbrella of speaking and writing. And that's what's so great. And that's why she'll always be able to produce and reproduce and to continuously grow. Now, right now, I want her to bring forth one big challenge in my eyes of her health challenge and how she's passing through this, sharing it with the whole world, and still showing us that bounceability that she has. Nanette, I'm not going to even say the word. I want you to tell them what the health challenge is and how you go through that day to day and where you are with it right now.
Okay, so I told you that I retired. The part that I left out was a chapter that I would love to just throw in the wind and get rid of in my life. All of our lives are in chapters. And as we deal with each chapter, as I said before, each chapter may have a few challenges that you could push to the side. Some chapters carry over to the next chapter. You might not fix the chapter from chapter 1 in your early life until you get to be in chapter 10 of your midlife. So sometimes it carries over.
Yes.
Well, one of the things that I already told you, my husband had the stroke. We were blessed. He wasn't hospitalized. There was nothing going on. And we didn't think much of it other than the fact that, thank God, we caught it the day that he was having the stroke. He was in the middle of having the stroke, mouth twisting, the whole thing, but he never got hospitalized. They hit him with needles in the emergency room, told him to go follow up with his doctor. We followed up with a doctor, and a couple of months later, she said, I see nothing. I see no problems. We thanked God for it, and we kept on going. As I said, we were still trying to progress. Well, when we got ready to move to North Carolina, everyone knows that when you move, you take everything with you. Yeah. So we got to take our medical records. We got to go to the doctor and get medical records and let them know that we no longer will be their patients, but we needed their help if we could to connect to a good facility in North Carolina for our conditions, different things that we already had. So I went to the doctor and I told the doctor for the last few months, I was feeling a little funny sitting. just
Yeah.
sitting
Okay.
down. And you know, as females, we go through that. Sometimes we
Yes.
don't know what it is, what's going on. So I'm trying to adjust myself in the seat, can't adjust right.
Trying to get comfortable.
It got so bad on the job that 8 hours, I
Mm.
would go and I had them order me a new chair because I figured the men were leaning in the chair, they'd running this way, they leaning this way. And we had 3 shifts with you know, different people sitting in that chair. So I said, I just need a chair for me. And since I was the training instructor, they gave me a chair for the training room. So every time I come on duty, an officer would go get my chair and switch the chairs out. And I got a brand new chair. Well, after about a month, I couldn't sit in that chair either. So in leaving, I told the doctor that I thought it would be wise for me to go around to all our doctors and get one final exam.
Yes.
And one of the exams that I got was from my gastrointernalist. And he said he was going to do the colonoscopy. And I said to him, well, why are you doing that? Do you check hemorrhoids? Because I don't know what it is, but I just can't sit right. He said, well, we'll check. I don't think you have hemorrhoids, but we'll check.
Okay.
Well, he came back. I'm picking up the transcripts, going to each of the doctors, making appointments just to pick up the transcripts, get a final analysis of what's going on with us in our health.
Right.
And he says, you can't go to North Carolina. Now, Joanne, the truck was coming on Saturday.
Already booked.
Already booked. Place already had. I'm turning keys in. Okay. No, I can't do that. I gotta go. He said, well, no, you can't. He said, you can't go until we set up a surgeon. We got to set up a oncologist. I said, wait a minute, oncologist. He said, yes.
That word.
He said one of the polyps was cancer.
Okay.
So fast forward, they did set up the doctors here for us. That's how good the doctors in New Jersey are.
Okay.
North,
they set you up.
They set you up. They made sure they made the calls and talked to the surgeons. They called and said, this is what she needs, and this is how it needs to be treated, and this is what it is, but she can't stay here. She's already moved to North Carolina. So I had colorectal cancer.
Okay.
I took the chemo pill. I did radiation for 15 minutes every day during the time that I had it. And I had to go for 6 weeks every day, 15 minutes of radiation. And I had a chemo pill. I did not have the chemotherapy. So after that, they found out that the problem was that this tumor was where it holds everything for you.
Oh.
So they could not avoid taking that out. Radiation wouldn't have gotten the area. So I had to have surgery. So I had surgery and everything else. But now here's where the interesting part comes in and how you don't understand how things work until they're done. One of the nurses said to me, you don't look good today. I'm from the North. You don't tell people from the North they don't look good without them responding. I turned and I looked at her and said, I didn't retire to cancer and I'm a little tired of this. But there's only 2 weeks left, so I'm going to do what I have to do. But I want you to know that this is not the end of my path. I didn't retire to cancer. I got home that night, Joanne, and I felt like I could have said it better. I didn't have to snap. I could have kind of put it in another way, but it aggravated my soul. It just stirred up something inside me. And something said, well, if you didn't retire to this, why aren't you saying that to more people? Why aren't you letting people know that that's not the end of the road? Why are you not telling this?
Yes.
If that's how you feel, why are you not being that voice to say, hey, look at all of this stuff we need to understand? Because that's not the only thing in wellness that we do.
That's right.
We eat sugar. We have improper diets. And then when we get on a dialysis machine, we moaning and groaning. We smoke. We have all kind of addictions.
Yes.
But then when we have to go and have lung transplants and lung things done, we're complaining about how did we get these things. So some of the things that we come across, we create.
That's right.
It's not what was meant for us. It's the avenue we chose to take to get there. Now, my cancer may be hereditary. It runs in my family.
Okay.
Cancer runs in my family. So I can't say too much to that, but I know I never smoked. I'm not a drinker. I get to bed on time. I eat properly because I don't want to lead myself into any of those unwell things. But what about my stress? What about my blood pressure? It's something you can't really control because it's connected to your emotional and your mental state. What about those things? What about the things that tick you off because you didn't have your coffee at 8 o'clock in the morning? So now at 10, you're not talking to people the way you should on the phone. What about the things that we lean on and make excuses for when we know it's us? When we know we do these things. So I wrote a book called Managing Your Madness.
Yes, yes.
And it's a self-help book because sometimes we need to help ourselves.
Yes.
The road rage that you get every day. You leave your house every day at 8 o'clock. But you know at 8:05, that school bus and the traffic and everything else is going to meet you. But every morning you cutting off somebody trying to get around the traffic when all you have to do is leave 10 minutes early.
Madness. Yes.
Madness. So these are the things that we do. And I show examples of different madness and I show examples of that. But let me say this first. I left it there. I just wrote the book. If you want it, you want it, you get it. Hey, it's fine with me. But I didn't push. And I was told in my soul and in my heart, you didn't retire to cancer. Why aren't you talking about this? Why aren't you telling people about their wellness? Why aren't you mentioning? It doesn't have to be as simple or as difficult as we make it if we just work with it. If we take the optimistic, why would I be mad at the doctor? He's trying to help me. And if he's not trying to help me, get another doctor.
Yes.
If I can't advocate for myself, but that's the point. How are people going to understand that they need to advocate if you as an advocator don't speak?
You said.
And I didn't. Okay, so you go to the doctor every so many months. After you have cancer, you have checkups. So every 3 months, I go to my surgeon and, he's telling me you're okay. I'm so happy you're okay. And then he said, but I feel a hernia. He said, you might have to have that taken out. Let's let it sit for a minute. And if it's not a problem to you, you don't get any pain. He said, but I don't like the idea that you got a hernia there. Not in the spot that I did. He's gung-ho on him being the surgeon.
Yes, about him.
I did start getting pain in my back. And he said, come back. It is the hernia. He said, that's what I was afraid of, that you were going to get twinges of pain with this hernia. So I go in with the hernia. It's a simple procedure. They take the hernia out, no problems. I get ready to get checked out. The lady says, okay, all we're going to do is do your last final blood pressure, temperature, breathing, and you can go home.
Okay.
Well, we get to the breathing and she says, oh my gosh, I hear a severe rattling in your chest. I said, a severe rattling? She said, yeah, it sounds like pneumonia. I said, I don't have a fever. I'm not coughing. I'm still being an advocate now. No. I don't have pneumonia. She said, well, let's go do a chest x-ray and just alleviate all of that. So we go and do a chest x-ray and I have a spot on my left lung and a spot on my right lung. The cancer from the colorectal cancer has metastasized and moved through my blood to my lungs. So now I have spots on my lung. On the left lung, they had to take off the top lobe. And on the right lung, I just finished going through chemotherapy and radiation at the end of the chemotherapy, which ended last week. All I could say through the whole thing was, God, I'm going to do what you said do. I'm going to advocate. I'm going to get started. No, I understand. I was supposed to talk
Listen,
about it and I
listen,
didn't talk about it.
obedience,
I should have
obedience.
been obedient.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was, from my first treatment all the way up until last Thursday, I posted every treatment and explained everything for people that might have had cancer. And even though they went to their doctor, they didn't fully understand, or they had questions. Out of my piece, they could now go back and ask the doctor, well, what about this? Well, I put up a post last Thursday that said, Jesus kept me when I couldn't keep myself.
Yes.
And I'm going to make t-shirts with that. I'm going to get t-shirts done with that on it, because I really believe that there's more of us that know that.
Yes.
That we've been through times in our lives where we didn't know how we made it through. And he keeps us for us to be able to manage through those times. And so here I am, optimistic. I never had a time, even when I wasn't feeling well, because the chemo, it kind of makes you feel different ways, and different people have different reactions.
Yes.
Mine was more like the worst flu I ever had. And I would get that every week, only for it to go away. I get a week off, only for me to go back to chemo. And I had to do 14 weeks that way. So you figure it was really 28 weeks, because you get the 2 weeks.
That's
span.
right. And
get the 2 week span. So I went from June all the way to December, and I started on the radiation. Then the radiation was only 9 treatments of radiation. But the thing about it is that you have to understand every step, no matter if it's a stroke, no matter if it's high blood pressure, no matter what it is, ask questions.
That's what it's all about.
Ask questions. And the other thing that I wanted to emphasize is, if you are of the African American descent, us folks,
another level that we're talking about.
We are not people that go in and take these tests for these different drugs. We are not test takers. So some of the holistic drugs that we decide that we're going to take or we're going to try, they may work for you. And when you say it to your doctor has no clue what it is, because it has not gone through the process of the regulated drugs. I take vitamin B17. All it is nuts and fruits, the seeds. They mash it up together. It makes a liquid. They put that liquid in a capsule, and that's your capsule. Well, when I said it to my doctor, who's from the islands, he's not an American. He's from the islands. He said to me, yes, it works well, but I can't give it to you because it's not regulated by the FDA. So your doctor is working on one accord and your holistic doctors are working on another. So all I'm saying is check both sides.
That's right.
There may be some things that you can take on the holistic side that can add to what the doctor is doing on that side. But what you would never do, don't take things and never tell your doctor that you're taking.
That's right. Everyone needs to be on one accord.
Everybody has to be on one understanding to know what you're taking and how much of it you're taking. So I changed my diet and I changed different things according to a holistic approach.
Now, Lynette, I have to stop you right there because you've got so much information. And of course, we're going to have you back. But I want to stop here so that I can give you the opportunity to tell people where you are, what you're doing, and what your next things are. But right here, we are talking about transitions, and she gave us so many details. I mean, she went from work as a correctional officer. Then she told us from New Jersey to North Carolina. She told us about legal aspects of everything. Then she broke it down to her cancer, how long she's had it, and some of the things that she did and is doing to take care of that. All of this is just so great. And when I started, I told you we had different topics on Justified Jewel podcast. But guess what? Nanette covered them all. She talked about the spirituality, and we have to talk about our God, our higher being, because that is a piece that she put so much into social media, and everyone stepped in and prayed with her. And I know she felt that. She talked about her physical health. She talked about the mental aspect, and it's an emotional thing that you go through, all of those things. So I just want you to know that we're going to have her back. And it might not be under transition because it will be another month. But what it will be under is victorious victory, because we know she can talk more than 30 minutes on that. And I am going to host a segment that's called Momentum. How do you keep it and where it is?
Yes.
But what we're going to do is in this segment, but Nanette is going to tell us the next projects that she's got coming. And we want to definitely know about your website so that we can purchase some of those things that you are talking about. Nanette?
Well, my website is my name. So it's NanetteMBuchanan.com, www.NanetteMBuchanan.com. All of my information is there. My books are there, what I offer as an author, as well as events that are coming up. Now, when you go to my event page, I haven't began posting anything because I'm just getting back on the wheel of doing things. But some of the upcoming things that I have this month is on the 11th, I'm at Oak Street Health on Ramsey Street and Country Club. They're doing a Mother's Day for the women, and they're doing Mother's Day poetry and thoughts. So we're doing that on the 11th. Beginning on the 20th of May, I will be at the Bill Crisp Recreational Center, which is for senior adults, 55 and up. I will be there every other Saturday. And we're starting there with poetry and readings and different topics and different things. So far, that's what's on my calendar. And I really, really, really would love it if you join my Facebook page. You can join either my Nanette Buchanan page, or you can join my author page, author Nanette Buchanan. Very easy to reach out to, very easy to get in touch with. And if you find yourself lost, just contact Joanne. She'll give you information.
That's right. And thank you again for being my guest. And as usual, I always have people that I already know because I want that background and I want them to be authentic and to know what they're talking about. And it's a trusted issue coming straight from their mouth and into the viewers. So I know you received something out of this. I'm not going to ask, did you? I know you have. So tune in again with Justified Jewel podcast. Thank you for looking and listening to this podcast. Thank you again, Nanette.
You're welcome.